Welcome to the Miller Report. I'm Suzanne Miller, CEO of Empire State Properties and founder of the Miller Report, hosted by WABC. Today we have with us a icon, a leader, to me a legend. He was the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Bill Clinton. He was the Attorney General of New York State for 4 years. And ready? Our governor, our beloved governor, for 11 years. Welcome, Governor Andrew Cuomo, to the Miller Report.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for that kind introduction.
Well, it's
a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. You know, Governor, things have changed. It's been 4 years ago. I would turn on my TV every day, literally. We would sit in our little home. We were so nervous with our masks. I was wearing a bike helmet. And we'd turn you on. We would just watch the TV and we would see what you had to say. My kids and I, and you were leading. You were the commander-in-chief. You really were. I don't know what has happened. What has happened in the 4 years from when you were leading to today? Today we have two wars. We've got China. We've got interest rates that have doubled. We have our cities are being attacked. If you were the commander again in any one of those roles, what is the first thing you would tackle?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. Big question, multiple dimensions. But you're right. The world has changed, not for the better. We have major problems almost on every level. International, what's going on with the Ukraine, the tragedy in Israel, just the unspeakable tragedy. Which hurts my heart, and I'm sure the heart of every listener. I took great pride as governor in supporting Israel. My father before me, I was probably the strongest elected advocate for Israel. Every time Israel was attacked as governor, I would go visit just to show our solidarity when they needed help. And people forget. This is not an isolated instance with Israel. They've been under attack since the formation of the country, right? So my heart is with the people of Israel, the Jewish community here who's suffering greatly. So we have international problems. We have domestic problems that we haven't seen in decades. And your expertise, New York City, and what's going on. First, the world changed post-COVID. COVID was not just a moment and a trauma that we experienced. It was a life changer. Right. It changed society. It certainly changed the dynamic for cities. You mentioned Secretary of HUD. I was at HUD for 8 years during the Clinton administration. Cities are organic places. Cities grow, cities die, right? And post-COVID, it's a different reality for cities. COVID changed the way we live and the way we work. If you said before COVID, well, I can't come to the meeting, but we can do it by Zoom. Yeah. They would say, what is that? Yes. What is that Zoom? You know, you come to my office. No, we're going to lunch. No, you come to the conference room. Cities were places of work. That's what formed cities. You went to the city to work. Well, now post-COVID, I can do it by Zoom. I can do remote work. I can go to my office once a week, twice a week. They can't even get people to come 5 days a week. So it fundamentally changed the dynamic of a city, the economics of this city. And it's not just New York, it's every city across the country. So it's in many ways made it more challenging for cities because I have to want to go there, right? The city has to be inviting in a way it wasn't before. Because I don't have to commute into the city. I don't have to get on the subways. I don't have to sit in the traffic. I can do business from home.
It's not the same business. But Governor, I'm going to call you that because I'm hoping you will again one day. 2025. We're in 2025. And we need a post-COVID plan. What would it be?
Well, post-COVID plan recognized what COVID said. COVID said, and let's stick with cities, or even states or regions of the country. You are now in a more competitive environment because people have choices. I'm more mobile than ever before. I can move. I can move to a place that's warmer, right? I can move to a place that is more economically inviting. I can move to a place where the quality of life is better and where it's just easier to live. So it is a much more competitive environment for cities and states and regions of the country than it was pre-COVID. And we're seeing that. We're seeing demographic shifts. Now, people don't appreciate, in New York, for many New Yorkers, you stayed in New York, you worked, and then you retired and you went to Florida, right? Everybody's grandparents went to Florida. Why? Well, because the climate, and I get tired of shoveling snow and it's warm. And so there was a natural migratory path to Florida and other parts, or the Carolinas or Arizona. That always happened. In some ways, COVID has accelerated that. And the conditions have accelerated that. New York City is an expensive place to live. State of California is an expensive place to live. The taxes are high. So now that I'm more mobile, let me then see what my options are. And I have more options than I ever had before. That has to be recognized by our leaders, that they are in a competitive environment. They are trying to keep population. They're trying to attract population. And that is easier said than done. Cities like LA or Chicago or New York, they just existed with the supposition that, well, people will always be here. Right? New Yorkers will never leave New York. Well,
I have to interrupt you, but 500,000 people did leave, and most of them were high taxpayers.
That is exactly right.
So as governor, how would you stop this exodus?
That is exactly
who's going to pay the bills?
Yeah. First of all, the city, first we have to recognize that reality, right? People are more mobile, they will leave. How do we know that? Because they are leaving.
Right.
They have left. Well, who leaves? The people who are the most mobile are the people with wealth. They are the most mobile. They have the most flexibility. They have the most flexibility about where they work and how they work. And we have seen wealthy New Yorkers leave. The problem is the wealthy New Yorkers are the New Yorkers who pay the taxes. Overwhelmingly, when you look at where the revenue comes from in New York, it is paid by wealthy New Yorkers. Over 90% of the revenue comes from wealthy New Yorkers. So when the wealth leaves, it has a dramatic economic impact. And this is how cities historically have gotten into trouble. You lose the wealth, you lose the revenue, you have less revenue to provide services. This quality of life deteriorates because there are fewer services, more people leave, right? That's the downward spiral that gets cities and states into trouble. So recognize that reality, and we are in the midst of that now. Recognize that when you raise taxes, you can actually be raising less revenue. You raise taxes, more wealth leaves, net, you actually receive less revenue. Recognize the fact that New York City has to be inviting. I have to want to come into the city. I have to want to go to a show. So the quality of life matters. My perception of the issue of crime. Am I safe in this city? Homelessness matters. The migrant situation on top of this now. All of that matters because it's my perception of how inviting I find the environment because I have new options. And I think we really haven't adjusted to that reality. You have the economic reality on taxes. And I think if you increase taxes on wealthy people, you will accelerate the exodus. I think crime, the perception of crime, you can quote statistics all day long. People feel the crime problem is worse.
I remember when you were governor, during the George Floyd days, you were the advocate for funding the police. You wanted to get more police there. So now how do we incentivize these police officers to join the academy? We couldn't even fill the academy this year. What would you do as governor?
Well, look, we have a political problem when it comes to crime and homelessness, et cetera. You have a social divide in this nation we've never had before. With the social divide has come a political divide. You have a far right and you have a far left. And those extremes really have been governing our political process. The far right, in many ways, is the tail that wags the dog, or if you want to say far right, the tail that wags the elephant, if that's even physically possible. On the left, you have a very loud minority on the left that is governing much of the policy that the Democratic Party makes. So on the issue of crime, post-George Floyd, defund the police. A dumber statement has never been made than defund the police. David Dinkins becomes mayor of New York City. First black mayor, historic. We have a crime problem. Do you know what David Dinkins did? He increased the police force 52%.
Common sense, guys.
52%. Well, today, we do have to understand that there are new challenges for our policing and new sensitivity and racial sensitivities. We also need a new model of policing. Not every 911 call requires a police officer with a gun, right? You have certain sophisticated problems that are being presented. You have mental health issues. You have substance abuse issues. Design a new public safety system that is more sophisticated for the situations we're facing. But you need public safety. People need to feel safe, and they don't. They don't.
So right now, I think every single person in the world is watching what's going on in the Middle East. That is the biggest thing. And the one lesson I think we've all learned is that, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, that one of the reasons this happened is because the parties were fighting within themselves, the political parties, the right, the left, and they weren't paying attention. So have we not learned anything? We're talking about the migrants. There's 130,000 people have come into New York City since the spring. I'm pretty sure that we haven't vetted a lot of these people. Do you think that we have an open border, that we're at risk for some kind of attack here?
The migrant problem has exacerbated the situation in the cities. There's no doubt about that. And there was virtually no plan on how to handle them. You knew several million people would come into this country. You have one.
But I just have to interrupt you. We're all Americans, and I'm for the migrants. Every single American's an immigrant. But it's a question of vetting and making sure that we know who they are.
Well, we have now asylum seekers, right? These are not people who came into the country illegally. They have come in legally, and they are seeking asylum. And we have a legal process to do that says you can come into the country and you can be here while you seek asylum, and then you have a right to a hearing, et cetera. That's the law. But where do they go in the meantime? And who houses them? And who feeds them? And how do you educate them? And where do they go? And how do you distribute the population across the country so it is manageable? And what cities can benefit from a workforce? And what states can benefit from a workforce?
So you're not concerned of an attack here because we're so busy in the Middle East?
I am not concerned of an attack here because we are so busy on the Middle East. I'm afraid of the dysfunction of the political system. I believe we can solve any problem we need to solve. It's not that we're overwhelmed with problems. It's our inability to craft and enact a solution because of the political divide.
We're paralyzed.
There is a great word. There is a political paralysis. So you take the migrants in New York City, 130,000, which, by the way, is a multiple of what other cities have received. Okay, here they are, New York City. They're on your doorstep. And by the way, Mayor Adams, they're your problem. And Mayor Adams says, well, hold on a second. I run a city. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with homelessness. I'm dealing with crime. I'm dealing with sanitation, et cetera. When did migrants and immigration become a local problem? This is a federal issue.
Right.
And where is our federal government
you tell me.
in managing it? Where is New York State in saying, New York City is still part of New York State, last time I checked, right? And the state saying, we're going to come in and we're going to help and we're going to manage the problem. And to put this on a city, be it New York, be it Chicago, be it Los Angeles, be it Miami, no, federal government, this immigration has always been a federal issue. The federal government determines who comes in. The federal government should take the lead on this issue. The states should be second in managing the issue. But to leave this to the cities on top of everything else they're dealing with that we just talked about post-COVID, crime, safety, et cetera, Mayor Adams will say it's killing New York City. I believe he's right.